Basics of Herpes Simplex Etiology.
Hi, I'm Erica Ellsworth.
I'm Rob Schmidt.
And I'm Rachel Smith.
And our presentation is on the herpes simplex virus, both 1 and 2. And we'll start off with Rachel.
Hi, I'm presenting today about the basics of herpes simplex etiology. The herpes simplex virus contains double-stranded DNA, which is housed in an icosahedral capsid. It is enveloped, meaning that it has a phospholipid bilayer derived from its host cell's membrane. This applies to both types of the virus. The virus avoids detection from the body's immune system by embedding itself in the host nerve cells. While it's surrounded by the host nerve cells, it's more likely to be overlooked, ignored, or otherwise left alone by the host immune cells. Once infected with the herpes simplex virus, it's carried inside the body for the remainder of the host's life. We'll now be discussing the cell entry. So first, a pore is created in the host cell when receptors on the host cell respond to the glycoproteins on the viroid's envelope. So glycoproteins B and C from the virus bind to a polysaccharide called heparan sulfide on the surface of the host cell. After the initial bind, the virus's glycoprotein D then binds to one or more of the host's entry receptors. The surfaces of the virus and the host cell become closer, then interactions between the virus's glycoproteins D, H, and L cause the virus to enter hemifusion with the host cell. The virus's glycoprotein B triggers the host cell's surface glycosaminoglycans to create a pore for the viral capsid. And that's how it enters the host cell. So, now we'll be discussing the type 1 virions, latency and reactivation. While it's in a latent state, the type 1 of the herpes simplex virus is prone to be found in the host nerves, particularly near the trigeminal ganglia, which is a cluster of facial nerve cells. Often, while it's in these dormant clusters, the virus produces latency-associated transcript ribonucleic acid, which can be shortened to LAT-RNA. The virions expressing LAT affects the death of host cells in its proximity, allowing the viroid to manipulate the cells around it and preserve its own progeny. This effective preservation may result in recurring periodic outbreaks of a more active state of herpes. During such episodes, the virus may become transferable again. Other ways the virus can be reinstated include stress, gastrointestinal distress, exhaustion, menstruation, injury, and influenza. Now we'll be discussing the type 2 herpes and the asymptomatic state that it often enters into. Usually it is the type 2 herpes that is being referred to when the term human herpes virus is used. In contrast to the oral connotation attached to type 1, type 2 herpes is generally associated with the genital region. It should be noted, however, that the location of the symptoms displayed are not necessarily accurate indicators of which variation of the virus has been contracted. In fact, recognizing any infection with herpes is difficult, as nearly 80% of affected people do not display symptoms. This is known as being asymptomatic. Additionally, as previously mentioned, the latent state of herpes is not readily expressed through its symptoms. And that's all.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the reservoir of the herpes simplex virus, which, as you know, is actually two viruses, really. The reservoir is pretty similar to the transmission because the herpes simplex virus kind of inhabits your nervous system. It's just there in latent form, and it periodically comes out to haunt you for no apparent good reason, but uh, what goes on is that in order to kind of understand what's going on, you kind of have to understand a little bit about the anatomy of the nervous system. In the nervous system, there's a variety of cells, but some of the cells, ones that we most often know about, are neurons. And neurons are not like the normal cells we consider in other tissues. Neurons have localized parts, one part being the cell body of the neuron and another part being the axon. And the virus will inhabit, or in latent form, it will just remain in the cell body of the neuron, but it won't necessarily be present in the axon of the neuron. And that's significant because there are neurons in the average human body that can be up to 1 meter long. And it's a single cell that's 1 meter long. And that's important because the virus can transmit itself through the axon, but it doesn't necessarily inhabit it. It's just localized to the cell body. And the nervous system largely is separated from the rest of the immune system. There are the blood-brain barrier and also a barrier between the blood and the cerebrospinal fluid. So the places where the neuron cell bodies are located are quite distinct from the rest of the immune system. So the virus has got a pretty good, place to live, really, because it largely goes under the detection of the body's immune defenses, simply because it's not in a place where a lot of the immune cells are at. And so this is one of the reasons why the signs and symptoms of herpes simplex virus come and go. It's because it's present in your body, but it's not really expressing itself all the time. And I mean, most of the time, people associate herpes simplex with a red rash, inflammation in the skin, blisters, and things. But the reason why those symptoms aren't consistent, and really, as was stated before, you can actually have the virus and shed the virus without any detectable symptoms, is because of your neuroanatomy. And so, as has been stated, the symptoms of herpes simplex virus largely are that, well, we largely think about them in terms of blisters and skin problems, but in fact, herpes simplex virus 2 can produce flu-like symptoms, and that includes, muscle aches, chills, almost as if you're having influenza, but it is the herpes simplex virus. So there's actually a variety of symptoms that can come in the body, and not just the things associated with, inflammation of the mucous membranes. So that's.
I'm going to go ahead and discuss the transmission of herpes simplex virus 1 and 2. I'm going to go ahead and discuss the transmission of herpes simplex virus 1 and 2. Herpes simplex 1, or commonly known as HSV1, can be transmitted from the mouth region, the fever blisters, to the genitals, which then becomes herpes simplex virus 2, also known as HSV2. Herpes simplex virus 1 and 2 become dormant in the body. This means that transmission of the herpes simplex virus would not occur until there is an outbreak. However, many people that have HSV1 and or 2 may not know it because they do not go through breakouts but are asymptomatic. This means that the virus is detected in the skin and or mucous membranes even though there are no current lesions on the skin. In this case, the virus sheds even when there's no outbreak. In order for the HSV herpes simplex virus infection to spread, the HSV must be in contact with mucosal surfaces and or abraded broken skin. To initiate infection, HSV must attach to cell surface receptors, use its envelope to the plasma membrane, and allow the de-enveloped capsid to be transported to the nuclear pores. As of now, humans are known to be the only reservoir of HSV1 and 2. This slide shows the pathway of the infection of herpes. The first part is HSV enters the body through the skin of mucous membranes. Latency. After an initial infection, HSV settles in nerves near the spine. And then you can either have reoccurrence or asymptomatic viral shedding. During reoccurrence, the HSV travels along the nerves back to the skin to form new blisters that look like fever blisters when you have HSV1. And then the other one, asymptomatic viral shedding. In this case, HSV travels along the nerves back to the skin, but does not form any new blisters. And as mentioned before, when asymptomatic viral shedding, even if you don't have blisters, you still have the chance that you could be shedding the virus to others. Next is treatment and prevention. As of right now, there's currently therapy for treatment for those who are infected with HSV. However, these treatments and therapies do not get rid of the virus, but they help with the symptoms and signs of the herpes simplex virus. An example of a drug that aids therapy is called acyclovir, and this is just helped to combat the signs and symptoms of HSV. It's not there to treat as in get rid of completely, just help with the signs. Prevention control. There is no current vaccine to help prevent herpes simplex virus. However, there are ways to help prevent the spread of HSV. When talking about HSV2, condoms are heavily pushed to be used as prevention. And then another way to help prevent the spread of herpes simplex virus 1 and 2 is try to avoid having contact with mucosal surfaces and open abrasions and or broken skin when having an outbreak to avoid transmission to another. But as discussed before, if you have asymptomatic viral shedding, you may not necessarily know you have herpes and that you're shedding at that certain point. So that's why it's important to get tested, just to make sure that everything's good. And if you are asymptomatic, talk to your doctor to figure out what to do next.
Right. We wanted to
good.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys for watching, and beware of herpes.